It's ours to lose. If we get everybody out and vote, there's not a thing they can do.
We know it is time for a new generation of leadership in America. The race is not yet over, and we need to finish strong.
The Trump and Harris campaigns are giving one last pitch to voters before they head to the polls tomorrow. Both candidates are running really close in the latest poll by the New York Times and Siena College.
Political reporter Paris Schutz is in the studio with the final push for the White House. Paris.
Yeah, Sylvia and Terrence, around 75 million Americans have already cast their ballots in this very consequential election between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And as you mentioned, polls show Harris having a slight lead in the national popular vote. But how about those swing states, so important in the Electoral College vote? So let's take a look at the Midwestern so-called blue wall. An aggregate of polling from 538 shows Harris with 1-point leads each in Michigan and Wisconsin, and then dead even with Trump in Pennsylvania. And then that shocking poll in Iowa over the weekend from local pollster Selzer showing Harris up by 3 in that normally deep red state. That's concluding the turnout among women who are especially motivated by the abortion issue is driving the numbers in Harris's direction. Now, both candidates are logging the miles today. The Harris campaign crisscrossing the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. She started in Scranton, hitting Reading, Pittsburgh, and Philly with a star-studded event featuring performers like Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, and Oprah. Meanwhile, the Trump campaign, they began the day in Raleigh, North Carolina. They're going to hit Pittsburgh, Reading, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. And according to both campaigns, the running mates will make stops in Wisconsin today, including J.D. Vance in La Crosse and Tim Walz in La Crosse, Stevens Point, and Milwaukee. And the candidates are using this as an opportunity to make their closing statements. For Harris, she spoke to campaign supporters today, urging them to preach unity, while former President Trump sounded more ominous tones on issues like immigration. This morning, he says he would demand Mexico get tougher on migrants coming across the border.
If they don't stop this onslaught of criminals and drugs coming into our country, I'm going to immediately impose a 25% tariff on everything they send in to the United States of America.
As we are canvassing, let's be intentional about building community. About building coalitions, about reminding people we all have so much more in common than what separates us. There is power in that. There is power in that.
So the other question on everyone's minds, when will we know the results? Likely tomorrow night here in Illinois. But if 2020 is any indication, it might be until Friday or Saturday before we have a final call in the swing states. And that's because Illinois counts ballots differently. All the early votes are pre-tabulated by machine and calculated as soon as the polls close. But many swing states, they can't even count those early votes until the polls close at 7 p.m., as Illinois Elections Board spokesman Matt Dietrich explains.
That's when their work really begins, and that is what can slow the process quite a bit. And that's where you get this lag of several days after the election.
Long story short, if polls are any indication, prepare to go to bed tomorrow night without a clear winner. We'll be working around the clock, Sylvia, so we won't even be going to bed until before Wednesday. But
we'll be there together through it all.